Hello, I made this video in order to illustrate mappings in EasyRec. So let me open simple project. So in this project, on purpose, I have two columns, the portfolio and the party, for which the naming convention is different between source and target. So just to illustrate this, I'm going to disable the mappings. So as you can see, the label I have in portfolio and the label I have in the party are completely different. In the source system, it's a kind of ID prefixed with a C, and for the party, it's an ID. But in the target system, I have an official portfolio label for both portfolio and party. So if you have to do such reconciliation, it is difficult because in addition, in this example, both portfolio and party has a key, so there is no way for you to match the records from source and target. So of course, you will have to implement the mappings. A dirty way to implement the mapping is to implement the mapping directly in the query, extraction query, to say if portfolio, so case one portfolio is this, then match the label. This is difficult to maintain because a lot of people will have to work on reconciliation and each of them will have to re-implement the mapping on their query. So I mean that it's not centralized, it's very difficult to maintain, probably will have conflict and it's very difficult. So a very basic solution actually is to implement mapping as a property file. A property is key value. This is a possibility. It can be like property, it can be XML, it can be Excel file. The solution we prefer is to store everything in an official database. So you have a centralized database for the mappings, and then you have a simple query, and the query must return two columns. The first will be considered as the key, and the second will be considered as the value. So any query can be used for the mapping. Consider two columns, sorry. First column is the key, second column is the value. So in my case, I use a property file. So I'm going to reduce this, reactivate the dependency. And as you can see here, I have a specific symbol to say that there is a mapping on this column, there is a mapping on this column, and everything has been replaced on the fly. And you can still visualize what was the original value and what is the new value for both. On top of that, it is even if you have a column which is mapped, there is no limitation. I mean that you can still use this column as a key column. So it's very powerful. So if we want to work in this reconciliation, we can do some quick fine tuning. For example, here I have a small difference, so I'm just going to introduce a little tolerance. 1 day tolerance, it's matching. And here also what I can see is that sometimes the payment date is null and sometimes the payment date is not null. So what I can do is that I would like to ignore whenever the payment date is null. I would like not to compare here. So what I can do, adjust tolerance. I'm going to use advanced tolerance string and say force match is source value is empty. Okay, so now it's matching and I can really focus on the real tolerance, on the real breaks. Now if I edit the template, so shift right click, edit templates, this is where the mappings are defined. So if you want to create a new mapping, just click on plus, select the column that you would like to map. For example, portfolio, in our case, we have to apply the mapping on the source data or on the target data. In our case, it was on the source data. And here you have to specify the file name. In my case, mapping for portfolio is here. It's a very simple property file. Copy the full path. I go back to EasyRec. And here I can put the file name. If you would like not to have like one properties file because it's not convenient for you, but you would have to have everything loaded into a centralized database, which is a very good solution. And this is what we try to push, we recommend actually. In this case, imagine a table like this, like 2 columns, source value, target value from mapping table. Then you can load everything, like this is the source and this is the target. You can load everything into a database, and this file, I will save this file as something like mapping portfolio.sql. Then you can reference the file, specify that is a SQL mapping, and then you need to select where is the database that contains this mapping. So what is interesting is that even if you do reconciliation between here, this is CSV, this is a CSV, so you reconcile a source CSV with a target CSV, there is no problem to use a mapping which is centralized from a different database, which is an Oracle database. So this is very easy, and this is the way to define a centralized, unique mapping for all objects. Thank you.